Welcome, everybody. Welcome, fellow patriots. Welcome, fellow deplorables. Welcome, fellow rock dwellers. Welcome, fellow dregs to society. Welcome back to your home, the Conservative Commandos radio show. I'm Rick Trader, coming to you from the studios of the Conservative Commandos radio network. And joining me as my co-host is the patriot from the battle-born state, the silver state of Nevada. And that is my good friend, Nevada. And that is my good friend, Sharron Engel. Sharron, welcome back to the Conservative Commandos.
You're getting to be a real Nevadan, but don't second guess yourself.
Hard.
Don't
I'm
second
working
guess.
hard. I'm working hard at it. I am. I'm really working hard. And that comes from, there is a way that people from Nevada expect you to pronounce their name. It is Nevada, and it's not Nevada. I did receive some emails. I did receive a couple of emails, people correcting me. So thank you for that. You know, I don't want to look like an ignorant fool. So
we try to be helpful. We say you don't say Montana, you say Montana. So it's kind of helpful to know that it's not Nevada, it's Nevada.
Absolutely.
But, you know, we have always some great news out here. After the fire at Notre Dame Cathedral there in Paris, they were able to preserve the organ, which I thought was really a major thing. It's a wonderful organ, and it's quite old. And they were also not able to preserve the roof, and they don't think that they can actually rebuild it because they don't have any trees that are that big anymore, that tall anymore in the region. And so I was thinking, President Trump said that he would help Macron. He said, we'll help. So maybe we should send some California redwoods. They're tall. They wouldn't be exactly the same tree, but
right.
They could make those beams that long, perhaps. I don't know.
Maybe they could rebuild it out of other materials.
Right.
And the world is coming together. The world is coming together. A lot of money has already been donated for the reconstruction of Notre Dame. And another thing they were able to save is what is called the rose window. Mm-hmm. And it is a beautiful stained glass window in the front of Notre Dame. I've seen it. It is spectacular. And they were also able to save some of the relics. They were able to save the crown of thorns, which is reputed to be the crown of thorns that was placed on the head of Jesus during his crucifixion. And I think they'll be able to rebuild in 5 years. The speculation is it could take 5 years or longer to rebuild, but I have faith that they will.
Well, I think that this week is Passover week. It actually does fall on Good Friday this year. Good Friday actually falls on Passover this year, which is good. It's supposed to. But it's interesting that we will have Resurrection Sunday coming right up, and this talk of Notre Dame. If it hadn't been in the news, would the secular society even have remembered about Jesus? So this is one of those good things that has come out of the fire. It's interesting that ISIS, they seem almost sad that they can't claim any responsibility, but they say next time, you just wait, we'll do it again. We'll do it the next time. So,
wow.
So that's the ISIS take on this. And of course, we're getting the Mueller report out now, or Mueller report, and it was interesting to me that Nancy Pelosi thinks that Attorney General Barr has gone off the rails. And
I think Nancy Pelosi has gone off the rails.
I thought it was interesting.
She and all her friends at the left.
Yeah, she said the Attorney General was going off the rails when he accused the spying when he said there was definitely some spying by the U.S. intelligence authorities. The more I hear about this, the more disgusted I get, because it seems that the FBI paid for some of this spying to go on. Now, you wonder, how did they put that in the budget to pay for this? The federal government is, if nothing else, has tons of paperwork that you have to fill out to get a dime. And that's not just private citizens. That's everybody that's ever worked for the government knows that. So it's really interesting to see what's coming out. And, of course, we've got a guest coming up on our show that we'll be able to discuss this further with. But I think the
gentleman that has very personal knowledge of this Mueller investigation.
Right.
Since he was questioned by it at quite length.
Well, I think what was interesting is the take that the press has on it. It says that while the report does not conclude that the president committed a crime, it also does not exonerate him regarding obstruction of justice. And this is Mueller wrote this himself. So they're still trying to save face. They're still trying to say that our president is a criminal somehow in all of this. But I don't think it's going to stick. I think that people are just sick and tired of it, fed up, and they're just not going to listen to it anymore.
Sharron, isn't like that if there's no smoke, there's no fire? Well, they found no smoke, okay? They found no collusion between between Trump, his campaign, or anyone around him. So there is no smoke, there is no fire. What do they want? Well, I'm glad they're doing it. I'm glad they're doing this, Sharron. I'm glad they're keeping this in the news because I think the American people are getting sick and tired of it. Every time they talk about it, it just shows there is nothing there. So let them continue to talk about it. Let the American people continue to know there is nothing there. There's no smoke. There's no fire. There's no collusion.
Yeah,
but
it's going to be
an
issue, I think, in the 2020 campaign, but it won't be negative for Trump. I think it's going to backfire on them.
I think it'll be positive for Trump, actually.
That's right. There's another thing we've been talking about, a couple of things we've been talking about, it seems like continuously on Conservative Commando's radio show, and that's this measles epidemic. An Israeli flight attendant actually picked up the measles in New York. She's an El Al flight attendant. She flies from New York to Tel Aviv, picked up the virus. She's 43 years old. She has encephalitis, and she's been in a deep coma for 10 days. And
holy mackerel!
So that's the downside of getting this. And
no, wait, I got it. She got it in New York, or she brought it into New York?
No, she caught it on a flight in New York. Yeah, she was in New York and she caught it there. Is what they're assuming is where she got it, because that's her route. And anyway, I was interested to see how the left would spin this, and they say we have the reintroduction of serious viral infection with a population that's withholding the vaccine from their children, and now it's spreading beyond that population. Hello. It's not us that are withholding the vaccine from our children. As we've pointed out over and over again, it's these undocumented migrants, the illegal aliens that are coming in, and they're not being checked for these things. Measles may be just one of many things that we will find an uptick. We've talked about tuberculosis and different things, but here they are. They want to blame us, those of us that have said because of religious reasons, which is a very, very small part of the population, will not get their children vaccinated. And it's interesting that if you've only had one measles vaccination, it's only 93% effective. So they're now encouraging you to get two, which are 97% effective. So now you know how effective your vaccine is as well. You know that there are some risks, and now you can still catch it. And they said that 1 out of every 1,000 children will develop encephalitis from measles. So
that is incredible.
It is.
Well, you know, there's other problems dealing with measles. Pregnant women who get the measles. We have a family member, while she was pregnant, got the measles, and as a result, her son has eye problems, has very poor eyesight. That son has lived with this problem all his life, and it came from measles. Sharron, we need to get to a break and pick up our conversation on the other side, as well as tell our audience who our guests are for today. Sure. But you are listening and watching the Conservative Commandos radio show with Sharron Engel and yours truly, Rick Trader. Today's show, like all our shows, is brought to you by the First Amendment, protected by the Second. Don't go away. Sharron and I will be right back.
AM/FM 24/7 Roku channel broadcasts all of our shows on demand. To ensure reliability, we store and stream our content on the same servers as Netflix and Amazon. Our Roku channel is free to use, and anyone owning one of the more than 10 million Roku devices can watch our channel at no cost whatsoever. If you have a television show or are thinking about producing a show, you can be a part of AM/FM 24/7's Roku channel. Watch our great shows on your Roku device. It's free and more reliable than cable TV. Are you stuck with a timeshare? Did you attend the presentation and were seduced and enticed into buying that great vacation and investment? Now you're in the terrible position of trying to figure out a way to get out of that mess. You're not alone. For over 15 years, BuyYourTimeshare.com has been helping people like yourself get out of timeshare ownership. The fact is there is no resale market. Unscrupulous telemarketers call you and say they have buyers waiting, and the next thing that happens is you give them hundreds of dollars for an ad, and you'll never hear from them again. Another fact is that an identical timeshare to yours is being offered on eBay for $1, and no one is buying it. If you want out of your timeshare, I urge you to go to buyyourtimeshare.com or call them at 877-94-HELP-ME. That number again is 877-94-HELP-ME. Buyyourtimeshare.com. That's buyyourtimeshare.com. 877-94-HELP-ME.
Dish TV is better than cable TV. Here's why. Dish has the nation's lowest TV price, along with an award-winning DVR that can skip commercials, record 8 shows at once, and get access to thousands of movies at your fingertips. Cable simply can't even compare. So the smart choice is to cut the cable and get Dish. Plus, you get all these great TV features, free HD DVR upgrade, free installation, and free movie channels. Say goodbye to cable and get more with Dish TV. 877-290-7764, 877-290-7764. As an added bonus, you can switch to Dish now and receive a $50 Visa gift card. So call now and get Dish TV. Call 877-290-7764, 877-290-7764. That's 877-290-7764. Limited time offer, 24-month commitment and credit qualification required. Cancellation fee, monthly equipment fees, and other restrictions apply. Promotion can change at any time.
And welcome back. Welcome back to the Conservative Commandos radio show. I'm Rick Trader. I'm co-hosted today by Sharron Engel. Sharron Engel, thank you.
It's a payback for all those times I called you Rick Radio.
Well, we could start a new show, the Sharron Engel and the Rick radio show. Right. Anyway, here we are. Glad to have you with us. And Sharron, we've got 3 great guests joining us today.
We do. We have Dr. Jerome Corsi, who's an investigative journalist and senior staff writer for several conservative websites. Corsi is the author of the #1 New York Times bestseller, Unfit for Command, the #1 New York Times bestseller, The Obama Nation, and the author of the bestseller, Killing the Deep State, The Fight to Save President Trump. Dr. Corsi's latest book is Silent No More, How I Became a Political Prisoner of Mueller's Witch Hunt. and it's now available in ebook. And we've asked him to come on and talk about an article that he's been quoted in, speaking about Julian Assange, who had information that could destroy the Russian hoax. So we're going to hear it straight from, as we say, the horse's mouth now about Julian Assange and what went on there. Our second guest is Doreen Denny. She's a senior director of government relations for Concerned Women for America, the nation's largest public policy women's organization. Doreen has broad experience across the federal government, having held positions in the White House Office of Policy Development under George H.W. Bush, U.S. Departments of Education and Health and Human Services, and both chambers of Congress, most notably for Senator John Ashcroft of Missouri. Outside government, she served as a consultant in the private sector and nonprofit organizations on issues ranging from education reform to emerging democracies. And we've asked her to come on and talk about an article she wrote, Is It Fair Play? How Female Athletes Are Losing in the Age of Gender Identity. And we've talked about this before, but I'm glad that she's actually pursued the topic. And now we'll get some real facts on what goes on when men are allowed to compete in women's sports just because they feel like a woman.
I could have been an all-star.
Yeah.
I could have been an MVP.
Oh my gosh. So our last guest is Marlo Lewis, who is a senior fellow at the Competitive Enterprise Institute. And Marlo has been published in the Washington Times Investor Business Daily, Central Station, National Review, among others. He has appeared on various television and radio programs, and his ideas have been featured by radio commentary by Rush Limbaugh and G. Gordon Liddy. Prior to joining the Competitive Enterprise Institute, he served as the Director of External Relations at the Reason Foundation. And during the 106th Congress, Marlo was a staff director at the House Government Reform Subcommittee on National Economic Growth, Natural Resources, and Regulatory Affairs. And we've asked Marlo to talk about his article, Carbon Tax, Not a Conservative Policy.
Mm-hmm.
We all know that, but he's going to give us the facts on it now.
Yeah, but there are some people out there calling themselves conservatives who are now saying, "Oh, we need this carbon tax," and they're very misguided people, in my opinion.
Very misguided. Well, speaking of some misguided people. I continue on as I peruse the news for the day. Yuma has declared themselves as an emergency city. On Tuesday, they said they can no longer handle the crush of illegal immigrants that the government has forced to release into their streets.
I have a solution.
Well, so this mayor, Douglas Nichols, he's warned of mobs of people roaming the streets looking to satisfy basic human needs, clashing with citizens looking to protect their own property. He says there's an imminent threat on having too many migrant releases in our community, he said. It's above our capacity as a community to sustain. And of the children and families that came in 2017, that's 2 years ago, more than 98% were still in the U.S. at the beginning of this year. So this is really hard. But the good news is Oakland Mayor Libby Schaaf over the weekend said she'd be happy to embrace all migrants. Oakland welcomes all, no matter where you come from or how you got there. But there's more. See, that one's close to me, Rick. We're only about 5 hours away from Oakland here. And here's one for you. Pittsburgh Mayor Bill Peduto also accepted the challenge this week, saying his city would welcome everyone. Welcome all. So, so here we go, Rick. You and I get to have firsthand knowledge of what happens when sanctuary cities take on this problem that they themselves have encouraged. So.
Yep. Well, a couple other people have spoken out about this, and one of them is Cher, the liberal, progressive
Right.
entertainer singer. And she says, and she tweeted this out, I understand helping struggling immigrants, but my city, Los Angeles, isn't taking care of its own. What about the 50,000 citizens who live on the streets, people who live below the poverty line and are hungry? My state can't take care of its own. Many are vets. How can it take care of more? And that comes from Cher.
Yeah.
And what scares me, Sharon Engel, I agree with her. I agree with her. Something else that scares me. I agree with Cory Booker. Cory Booker said on Face the Nation that releasing illegal immigrants into sanctuary cities will, quote, make all of us less safe. That coming from Cory Booker. Oh my God, Sharon Engel, here I'm agreeing with Cory Booker and Cher.
We're going to have him on the show. That's all there is to it.
We're going to have an intervention here.
Well, I would just encourage our listeners to go to Monday's show. I think we will feature it on the Best of the Week this week with Dana Allen, where he talks about what happens when you get into the Democrat death spiral. And I thought that was an interesting way that he described what happens in cities, what has happened in Detroit, what is now happening in Chicago. And it all stems from this idea that government can take care of everything, and they can't. And when they do try, it doesn't take care of anything is really what the point is. So I've been to your house many times, and I know how much you love Bobby. So I found this one just for you. It's a study out of the University of Auburn University in Auburn, Alabama. And they did a study on Bobby.
Well, Sharon, you need to say who Bobby is.
Well, Bobby is your Felis catus. That's his scientific name, Felis catus, which means he's a little house cat. And there's been an ongoing argument among cat lovers whether they should be allowed to go outdoors more often or not. And what the study shows is
who goes outdoors? The kitty cats or the
kitty
humans?
cats. The kitty cats should be allowed to go outside. But the study shows that they're better off, definitely better off staying indoors. That pet cats allowed to go outdoors, in fact, are nearly 3 times as likely to become infected with pathogens or parasites than those confined to quarters. And their two-legged housemates, that's you, should also take note because they can transmit some of those diseases to humans. Intriguingly, the farther domesticated felines are from the equator, the more likely they are to be afflicted with some kind of bug or virus if they spend time outdoors.
Interesting.
Here's the quote: each degree in absolute latitude increased infections likelihood by 4%. So every degree that you are above the equator, the likelihood of infection is 4% more. So there you are in New Jersey. That's quite a ways from the equator.
Right. Well, Bobby, one of my big fears is Bobby getting out, but fortunately, Bobby loves to lay near the doors, especially our back door, because we get a lot of sunshine. He's never really shown any interest in going outside, thank God. But also, kitties, life is a lot more dangerous for kitty cats outside than inside. The life expectancy for an outside cat is from 3 to 5 years, only 3 to 5 years. Life expectancy for a cat that stays inside is 15 to 20 years. So life outside is dangerous for a kitty cat.
It's a jungle out there, especially in Nevada. Especially in Nevada, we've got coyotes that just love kitty cats, and they're not in the least afraid of human beings.
Well, some people hate cats, and I just happened, this little guy crawled into our yard about 6 years ago, and we just fell in love with him, and we couldn't give him up. He's quite a little bundle of fun. Hey, Sharron, we do need to take our next break and get on our first guest, and you are listening and watching the Conservative Commandos. Voice breaking up a little bit. You are watching and listening to the Conservative Commandos radio show with Sharron Angle and yours truly, Rick Trader. Don't go away. On the other side, we're going to have our first guest with us, Jerome Corsi. Don't go away. We'll be right back.
Have you been leasing a property for your business or renting storage space? Are you tired of paying rent year after year? Call the experts at General Steel to own a building at up to 30% off now.
I'd been renting a building and paying someone else's mortgage, but General Steel showed me how I could own a space tailored to the needs of my business and for less than renting.
Call General Steel now at the number on your screen for our current building specials and to price your metal building system today.
My building's the dream I've had since finishing my house 14 years ago. I've been using it for a garage, workshop, and storage area for my tools and equipment, and I can't believe how great it turned out.
The economy is improving and the price of steel is expected to rise. Stop waiting. It could cost you thousands. Call General Steel now to see how you can own for less than you thought. Stop waiting to start your business or expand your operation. Call General Steel now.
Call 877-484-7002.
Everybody wants cheap airfare, but where do you find it? You call low-cost airlines. Their prices are direct from the airlines, and they're so low you can't find these fares published anywhere. They specialize in cheap flights, discount hotel rooms, cheap car rental rates, and great package deals anywhere around the world. Wherever you want to go, they can help you get there cheaply and with a best price guarantee. If you want the lowest prices on your airline tickets or other travel services, call now. That's right, call. That's the only way to get these rates. Experts are standing by 24/7 to get you the cheapest airfare and hotel rates available. So don't wait. Call right now for the lowest travel prices anywhere and for great last-minute travel deals too.
Call 888-431-0562. That's 888-431-0562. 888-431-0562. 888-431-0562.
Friend, do you remember when it felt good to withdraw your cash from the bank to expand a business, go on vacation, or buy a new car? Well, today, withdrawing your own cash has become a very risky business, according to The Secret War, a shocking new research report. I just read it. And folks, I was amazed to learn why banks are now required to spy on us for the government and then report any suspicious or unusual behavior. I suggest you get The Secret War free. Just call the number on the screen, no charge, from the folks at Swiss America. And get this, did you know simply spending cash today may be enough to have you branded as a potential criminal? That's right. The new war on cash is really a war against all freedom-loving Americans. The Secret War is yours free, so call the number on the screen and you can tell them Pat Boone gave you the number.
Welcome back. Welcome back to the Conservative Commandos radio show with Sharron Angle and yours truly, Rick Trader. For rebroadcasts of our show, please check out our website, CCRShow.com. That's CCRShow.com. Please like us, friend us, and follow us on Facebook and on Twitter. And Sharron, our first guest of the day, is with us. Please make the introduction.
Well, it's always a pleasure to introduce Dr. Jerome Corsi, who is an investigative journalist and senior staff writer for several conservative websites. Dr. Corsi is the author of the #1 New York bestseller, Unfit for Command, the #1 New York Times bestseller, The Obama Nation, and author of the bestseller, Killing the Deep State, The Fight to Save President Trump. Dr. Corsi's latest book is Silent No More, How I Became a Political Prisoner of Mueller's Witch Hunt, and it's now available on ebook. Dr. Corsi, welcome back to the Conservative Commandos radio show.
Well, Sharron and Rick, thank you very much.
Well, we're excited to talk to you about an article that you were quoted in. You were quoted as saying, Julian Assange has information that could destroy the Russian hoax. Now, Julian Assange has had his name pretty much scandalized, just as your name has been scandalized by this whole thing. So, is there some way that we're going to get truth out of Julian Assange? What do you mean he can destroy the Russian hoax?
Well, I think the government's case against Julian Assange is very weak. And by the way, Assange was not indicted for anything having to do with Russia or having to do with the theft of the emails from the Democratic National Committee in the 2016 election. He was indicted over, I think, a very weak case on Chelsea Manning, who stole government secrets in 2010, a case in 2013. The Obama administration decided not to prosecute Assange over First Amendment issues. I think the government is making a mistake here. But specifically when I said that Assange has information that can destroy the whole case on Russian collusion, Assange has said repeatedly that Russia did not steal the emails from the Democrats, and that he can prove that. And if anybody can prove that, Assange ought to be able to, because he got the emails from someone, and he has to know who he got them from, where he got them. And if Julian Assange says that Russia did not steal the emails, that's very, very important. I'd say that Attorney General Barr ought to give Julian Assange immunity, get him here, say, prove your case. Because the second whammy, if we get from Mueller that there was no Russian collusion, and then Julian Assange proves, oh, by the way, the Russians didn't even steal the emails, I think that's Julian Assange's get out of jail free card, and it's like a gold card, and I think it completely destroys the Russian collusion hoax altogether. Julian Assange is the second shoe to fall, and I think it's devastating to Mueller and to Hillary Clinton and to all these deep state characters who have been hating Trump and trying to remove him from office.
Well, and I think this thing is actually deeper still. In reading some of the things that you said, I was especially taken by your comment on the Seth Rich case, where he suggested again that there was this DNC employee who was murdered in Washington during the 2016 campaign, and who supplied him with the email. So here we go again. It seems like there's intrigue afoot.
Well, Julian Assange gave interviews last year in 2016, on July 22nd, when Julian Assange made public something like 40,000 emails that absolutely destroyed Debbie Wasserman Schultz. She was the head of the Democratic National Committee. She had to resign when those emails came out. Julian Assange gave an interview to British television. He's given many interviews, including one to Sean Hannity. And Julian Assange said two things really critical. One, the Russians did not have anything to do with stealing the Democratic National Committee's emails. And then Seth Rich's name comes up, and Julian Assange suggests very strongly that Seth Rich was the one who got him the emails, that Julian Assange says we protect our sources, and sometimes our sources risk their lives to get us information. And he said he put up like a $20,000 reward for information leading to the finding of Seth Rich's murderer. Well, that suggests to me that Julian Assange is telegraphing. I don't know whether Seth Rich stole the email or not, but Assange is telegraphing that the Russians didn't steal it, and we better reopen the Seth Rich case.
And when we have the makings of another movie, this sounds so much like some of those things that come out of Hollywood, where the guy, they accuse him of being paranoid because he thinks he's going to be killed for information, and yet we have this really going on, it seems like, right here, right now, over things like this.
I think my case makes a good movie. I mean, I think I'm the one who broke the Russian collusion deal when Mueller, after these 40 hours of this Inquisition, that's what Silent No More is all about. When I didn't have a connection to Julian Assange, but Mueller's whole thesis, I was the linchpin. He was going to say that I introduced Roger Stone to Julian Assange, and then Roger Stone was working with Donald Trump, and Donald Trump, through Roger, was able, by my connection with Assange, to tell Assange when to release these emails on John Podesta to Hillary's campaign chairman, 2016, to hurt Hillary the most. Well, I didn't do that because I don't know Assange. I have no connection with Assange whatsoever. But in July and August 2016, my wife and I took our 25th wedding anniversary to Italy. I had a chance to think about it, and I figured out on my own that Assange had Podesta's emails. I told that to Roger Stone, told it to many people, and that I said that Assange was going to drop these day by day starting in October. It was going to be the October surprise, and the FBI was listening to my phone calls. I didn't know it at the time, and reading my emails, so they were convinced I could prove Russian collusion because I could link Roger Stone to Assange. And when I couldn't do it, they became furious at me, wanted to throw me in prison.
Well, like you said, it'll make a good movie, and I expect it to come out. I also expect the next book. You said that if Julian Assange wants to write a book, you'll do it with him. That would be a great book.
I don't know, but I'll be happy to work on it with him. Maybe that's how we'll get introduced for the first time.
For the first time, you've been accused, though, of knowing each other intimately for a few years.
They think I'm Julian Assange's best friend, that he calls me up all the time. Jerry, now what should I do here? It's ridiculous. Julian Assange doesn't need my advice. Julian Assange is one of the most brilliant users or manipulators of media that exists. He understands how media works about as well as anyone has ever understood it, and he's a genius at it. Gets these stolen documents over 12 years. I've studied it very carefully, but from a distance, and he is masterful in his ability to command worldwide attention repeatedly. And in fact, in 2016, I think he had a major impact with these Podesta emails in particular on causing Hillary Clinton to lose. Of course, if John Podesta hadn't written the emails in the first place, if Hillary hadn't run such a lousy campaign, there wouldn't have been anything interesting about the emails.
Well, I know it's going to be interesting to read your book, Silent No More, How I Became a Political Prisoner of Mueller's Witch Hunt. Now, this is already a New York Times bestseller, or has it just come out? Talk to us a little bit about your book.
Well, the Silent No More is working towards being a bestseller, but it's what I did was I rushed the ebook into print first because starting in November, Mueller was so angry at me because I broke their case. I couldn't connect him to Assange, couldn't connect Trump to Assange. So they were going to indict me. I refused to take their plea deal because they wanted me to plead to my first day's memory mistakes when I hadn't seen my 2016 emails. I was not going to stand in front of a judge and before God and lie that I committed a crime I didn't commit. And so Mueller was furious at me, and I said, well, I'm going to write this book. Tell everybody all about their tactics. Of course, the Mueller team hated that I wrote a book on them. I not only refused their deal and told them to take a hike. I said, I'm going to write a book about you guys. Well, I hated that. And so now we've got I recorded the audio book in the iTunes, 9.5 hours, like a podcast. You can listen to it in your car or on your cell phone. And the hardcover is now in the bookstores. And it's a frightening story, but I think it's very compelling.
Well, compelling enough to make a movie. We're talking here with Dr. Jerome Corsi about his some quotations of him in an article about Julian Assange, where he said that Julian Assange has information that could destroy the Russian hoax. We have to take a break. We're coming to you from the Conservative Commandos Radio Network studios and around the world on the internet with TalkStream Live, iHeartRadio, TuneIn, American Political Radio, Leading Edge Radio Network, and AM/FM 24/7. And now you can watch our TV show on the AUN TV network in Northern California. We'll be right back with Rick Trader after these messages, and I'm Sharron Engel.
AM/FM 24/7 Roku channel broadcasts all of our shows on demand. To ensure reliability, we store and stream our content on the same servers as Netflix and Amazon. Our Roku channel is free to use, and anyone owning one of the more than 10 million Roku devices can watch our channel at no cost whatsoever. If you have a television show or are thinking about producing a show, you can be a part of AM/FM 24/7's Roku channel. Watch our great shows on your Roku device. It's free and more reliable than cable TV. Are you stuck with a timeshare? Did you attend the presentation and were seduced and enticed into buying that great vacation and investment? Now you're in the terrible position of trying to figure out a way to get out of that mess. You're not alone. For over 15 years, BuyYourTimeshare.com has been helping people like yourself get out of timeshare ownership. The fact is there is no resale market. Unscrupulous telemarketers call you and say they have buyers waiting, and the next thing that happens is you give them hundreds of dollars for an ad, and you'll never hear from them again. Another fact is that an identical timeshare to yours is being offered on eBay for $1, and no one is buying it. If you want out of your timeshare, I urge you to go to BuyYourTimeshare.com or call them at 877-94-HELP-ME. That number again is 877-94-HELP-ME. BuyYourTimeshare.com. That's BuyYourTimeshare.com. 877-94-HELP-ME.
Dish TV is better than cable TV. Here's why. Dish has the nation's lowest TV price, along with an award-winning DVR that can skip commercials, record 8 shows at once, and get access to thousands of movies at your fingertips. Cable simply can't even compare. So the smart choice is to cut the cable and get Dish. Plus, you get all these great TV features, free HD DVR upgrade, free installation, and free movie channels. Say goodbye to cable and get more with Dish TV. 877-290-7764, 877-290-7764. As an added bonus, you can switch to Dish now and receive a $50 Visa gift card. So call now and get Dish TV. Call 877-290-7764, 877-290-7764. That's 877-290-7764. Limited time offer, 24-month commitment and credit qualification required. Cancellation fee, monthly equipment fees, and other restrictions apply. Promotion can change at any time.
And thank you for staying with us. This is the Conservative Commandos radio show. I'm Rick Trader. My co-host today is Sharron Engel. Yes, that's Sharron Engel. And I want to give a shout out to folks who listen to us on stations in Florida, Nevada, Georgia, Pennsylvania, Colorado, Wisconsin, California, and seen as part of the AUN television network in California. Our guest this segment is Dr. Jerome Corsi. He's an investigative journalist, and his most recent book is Silent No More: How I Became a Political Prisoner of Mueller's Witch Hunt. Dr. Corsi, thank you for holding through that break. We appreciate your time.
Great to be with you. Thank you very much.
Dr. Corsi, you've been quoted extensively in this article that, and you say Julian Assange has information that could destroy the Russian hoax. Dr. Corsi, you mentioned that he should want his day in court, but if so, why? And I know you've never talked with him, you've never met the man, but if he was looking for his day in court, what puzzles me is the time that he spent in the Ecuadorian embassy as a refugee.
Well, I think he's always trying to avoid being arrested. No one likes the idea of being arrested, and he doesn't know whether he'll get sent to Sweden to face these rape charges. I mean, there's many governments that are angry at Julian Assange, but I think real get-out-of-jail-free card is that he can prove the Russians did not steal Democrats' emails, and I think and this case against him is very, very weak. I mean, if Julian, he was not indicted for anything having to do with Russia or the 2016 theft of the Democratic National Committee emails. It's the Chelsea Manning case, and the indictment is really a conspiracy to steal the emails. Julian Assange evidently offered to help Chelsea Manning get a password broken, but the indictment makes clear that Assange failed to help with the password. It didn't work. So all the material, all the cables and other classified documents that Chelsea Manning stole that Assange published did not come from any efforts where Assange had helped Chelsea Manning steal those documents. And that's critical because under New York Times v. U.S. is a Pentagon Papers case. The Supreme Court ruled in a 6-3 decision in 1971 that the New York Times and the Washington Post could publish the Pentagon Papers even though they were stolen and classified. And remember, back then the governments don't like having their secrets revealed, and so the government says, well, Assange is a criminal because he's in possession of stolen material, and it's the government's secrets, and it's going to damage the government. Well, the Supreme Court disagreed. The Supreme Court said under the Constitution, the First Amendment, the right of the public to know, for the press to be free, is so important, and the government secrets need to be revealed in general, and even if they're stolen, even if they're classified. Remember, the Pentagon Papers was a study that was done early in the Vietnam War, and it was a classified study done for the Pentagon. Daniel Ellsberg, who was under contract to the government, he's working with the Rand Corporation, he stole that document, the Pentagon Papers, several volumes, copied them on an old Xerox machine in those days, and got them to the newspapers. Well, those Pentagon Papers proved that from the first days of the Vietnam War, Secretary of Defense McNamara and Lyndon Johnson knew the war could not be won. It was a war we should never have fought. And yet they lied to the American people. And 50,000 Americans went to Vietnam and lost their lives. Yeah. And of course, the government didn't want anybody to know that. They're saying, look at all these people who fought this war. Well, the people fighting the war, I believe, fought for freedom. But the government there was lying, and that needed to be told to the public.
Right.
Well, so too, what Assange has published, including the Podesta emails, needs to be told to the public. The people shouldn't be having secrets they don't want anybody to know about.
Well, Dr. Corsi, it seems like that Julian Assange was a hero to the left when he was working with Chelsea Manning. He was a hero. But now he's a villain since he released the Podesta emails. I could see why he would be a target then of the Obama administration, but the Obama administration is gone. Do you think that he has a better chance with the Trump administration and this Justice Department? Are they going to see him in a more favorable light?
Well, I think by the way, the Obama administration declined to prosecute Julian Assange over the Chelsea Manning case. They declined.
Right, but they wanted to prosecute him over the Podesta emails, correct?
Well, now the Democrats want to prosecute him over the Podesta emails, but so does, it seems to be, the Justice Department under Rod Rosenstein. This indictment was a sealed indictment against Assange that was issued in March 2018 when Rosenstein, as Deputy Attorney General, had control over Mueller. Right. This was not a recent indictment. I think that the Trump administration ought to reconsider this and understand that Julian Assange has a good case under the First Amendment, and they should not prosecute him. So I think they should give him immunity and have him come to the United States and tell the world, prove to the world that Russia didn't steal the Democrats' emails. I think that would be devastating to the Democrats. But in my point of view, under the First Amendment, remember, I wrote my PhD dissertation at Harvard, political science, 1972, was written on the Pentagon Papers case.
Right.
I guess I had the prescience at that time to know that that was going to be important. Here, all these years later, I'm sure glad I did that dissertation.
All right.
Because my heart is with the First Amendment, and I don't.
Isn't it amazing how, as things turn, they keep coming back again? Isn't that amazing in life? Hey, Dr. Corsi, you put out a tweet the other day, and it says, "I expect AG Barr's 4-page summary will be accurate, no collusion, no obstruction, sufficient to indict, hate Donald Trump. MSNBC may continue spinning, increasing, desperate, losing cause."
Yes. I think, first of all, the Attorney General Barr, who I take to be a professional and not partisan, not politically tipping the scales of justice, will do his job. And he, I can't imagine, wrote a summary that's not representative of the full Mueller report. And Rosenstein was kept on, I think, by Barr, in particular to sign the summary, because Rosenstein is no fan of Donald Trump, and Rosenstein is the one who appointed Mueller. Well, if Rosenstein signed on to the summary that Attorney General Barr released, I think that means that's another indication the summary is likely to be accurate.
Dr. Jerome Corsi, we want to thank you so much for joining us here on the Conservative Commandos radio show. It's great to speak with you again. And your book, please tell our audience how they can get your book.
Well, Silent No More. The subtitle is How I Became a Political Prisoner of Mueller's Witch Hunt, all about how I think I broke the collusion theory and what a Kafkaesque experience this was when they wanted to put me in prison. They never did indict me, and they're not going to. It's available in bookstores all over the country, hardcover. It's on ebook, Amazon, and BarnesandNoble.com. And also, I recorded the audiobook and the iTunes version, which are also both available.
Well, Jerome Corsi, you have done in my opinion, you have done great service to our country. I want to thank you for that. Your book, Unfit for Command, I think stopped a bad guy from becoming a president. We thank you for that. We also want to thank you for being a guest here on Conservative Commandos radio show. Take care and God bless.
Great to be back with you again. Thank you very much. God bless.
God bless. And you are listening and watching the Conservative Commandos radio show with Sharron Engel and yours truly, Rick Trader, coming to you from the studios of the Conservative Commandos radio network. On the other side, we're going to be speaking with Doreen Denny. She's the Senior Director of Government Relations for Concerned Women for America, and we're going to be talking about why I have a chance to be a superstar. Don't go away. We'll be right back after this break.
I saw voter fraud with my own eyes. Now, people say, why didn't you report it to the authorities? Well, they were the ones doing it.
Elkins goes to vote for Merrick.
The integrity of one man, one vote doesn't apply at the Texas state legislature. There is no way to know if your representatives are voting for themselves.
Hartman, a Republican, reaches back to vote for Democrat Oliveira. Democrat Matt Reynolds votes for Republican England.
2 out of 3 voters nationwide believe that voter fraud is a serious problem in the U.S. today.
The process is rigged.
Both sides of the aisle are guilty.
Florida now has to tell the Department of Justice whether the state will comply with DOJ's demand to stop purging thousands of people from its voter rolls.
We have the sloppiest election system of any industrialized democracy.
Philadelphia flagged 50,000 duplicate registrations, so just think how many more slipped through.
It's almost impossible to detect. How do you get caught? You only get caught if you confess.
Election corruption is deeply embedded in America. Quote, election fraud is a crime that usually pays, unquote, writes Tracy Campbell in his book, Deliver the Vote, A History of Election Fraud, an American political tradition from 1742 to 2004. In 1742, the first Prime Minister of Britain in the American colonies, Robert Walpole was forced to resign.
We have a right not to have our vote canceled out by someone who shouldn't be voting, someone who's an illegal alien, someone who's a felon not eligible to vote, someone who doesn't exist. If they vote, they cancel your vote out as much as if you're prevented from voting.
If this is going to be fixed, it's going to have to be a citizen effort. It comes down to, it's the same old question, if not now, when? If not us, then who?
This is huge. This is about the democracy and the principles of the United States of America. People say, but why you? Why you? Why? Well, why not? And if it starts with a fireman, if it starts with a sanitation worker, if it starts with a teacher or a nurse or a caretaker of the elderly, then so be it. It's got to start somewhere. But it's time we come together and fix this problem once and for all.
There is no serious person out there who would suggest somehow that you could even rig America's elections.
To say that it doesn't exist is an outright lie.
Serious allegations of voter fraud, the claims raising questions about the
Commerce Secretary Ron Brown and 32 others were on a military plane that crashed today in a violent storm. There are no known survivors at this time.
The U.S. Army was funded by the evil entity.
Saw voter fraud with my own eyes.
To say that it doesn't exist is an outright lie.
The process is rigged.
So it's incredibly important now that we draw a line and say, not on our watch.
Thank you for staying with us. This is the Conservative Commandos radio show. I'm Rick Trader. My co-host today is Sharron Engel. And for rebroadcasts of our show, please check out our website, ccrshow.com. That's ccrshow.com. You can listen to rebroadcasts of our radio show, watch our TV show, a lot of great articles, a lot of terrific information. And Sharron, our next guest is with us. Please make the introduction.
Well, it's an honor to introduce Doreen Denny, who is the Senior Director of Government Relations for Concerned Women for America, the nation's largest public policy women's organization. Doreen has broad experience across the federal government, having held positions in the White House Office of Policy Development under George H.W. Bush, U.S. Departments of Education and Health and Human Services, and both chambers of Congress, most notably for Senator John Ashcroft of Missouri. Outside government, she has served as a consultant in the private sector and nonprofit organizations on issues ranging from education reform to emerging democracies. Doreen, welcome to the Conservative Commandos radio show.
Thank you. It's nice to be with you today.
Well, it's great to have you, and we're especially interested in your article, Is It Fair Play? How Female Athletes Are Losing in the Age of Gender Identity. There's one quote here that I wanted to start it off with because I think it just kind of nails it. Congressman Matthew Gaetz of Florida raised a possibility if President Trump were to say, I am now the first female president. Who would celebrate that? And yet, we've got a real problem with this. I feel like a woman, and when we feel like women, we're actually opening it up to where our women can't compete in athletics anymore. Talk about this.
Well, and thank you very much, Sharron. And you're right. This is a time of history that I believe is unparalleled, when we are now having to reckon with the reality that that there are many that would like to include a notion of gender identity in how we understand sex, and that would mean that any kind of person that you felt you were, male or female, women or men, wasn't based on who you are and your body, was based on your perception of yourself. And when we go down that road and start to acknowledge and affirm that, we start to recognize the impact and the realities of what that's going to create. And in the area of sports, I think it becomes most acutely seen and already is happening.
Well, when I was in high school, we had intramurals, which meant that you got to compete within your school, but we didn't have ladies softball. We didn't have ladies tennis. We didn't have ladies golf. We didn't have ladies basketball. We didn't have ladies sports. And
Right.
and it was something that we actually really had to push forward. And I think that Senator Birch Bayh decided that he was the father of what we call Title IX, which really opened up athletics for women. And yet this would completely negate anything that was done there, wouldn't it?
Yes, it would. And in fact, since Birch Bayh was successful in passing Title IX, which really did open the doorway for female athletics and required schools to recognize and to have female teams that were equal in terms of their opportunities for women as they were for men. We've had a 900% participation rate increase in women's sports. So now we see them universally at the college level, and in many high schools, sports have been developed over time and more options for girls. And it's been an important pathway for young girls and young women to really develop many character skills that make them successful later in life. And what would happen now is in the age of gender identity, when a biological male could say, well, I feel more like a female and a woman and I want to compete in the girls category, what happens because of their physical advantage, which really cannot be negated by testosterone treatments and other things, I mean, not withholding of testosterone, estrogen treatments in this case, and other things, is that females, the young girls, will lose, and they are losing in races. This year is just a good example of that. In the state of Connecticut, at the high school level, 2 young women who were top in their field, among the top athletes in Connecticut, were denied the opportunity to move forward in the Northeast Region Championships because 2 young men who identified as female had for the last couple of years, and all they had to do was sign a statement that said they wanted, they were female, or I should say girls. They were able to take those 2 top spots and be celebrated in those positions. They were even celebrated as the female athletes of the year. And the 2 of the athletes missed the cut by just, coming in 6th and 7th place, or 7th and 8th, whatever, but they only allowed to advance a certain number of athletes. High school rolls around one time for these young women athletes. And the opportunity for college scholarships to move on in something that they love to do and that they might have the opportunity to do, that only comes around once. And so it's a tragedy that we're in this place where we're trying so hard to recognize and dignify people that have differing views about themselves, but it's coming at a cost. And women, girls, females will lose.
Well, it's interesting that we're almost back to ground zero with this whole fight. I brought out that we didn't have a chance to compete for college scholarships in sports. The guys did, and often they went to school with a full ride scholarship. I had to work. I had to go and get a job so that I could go to college. And so this just opened up a whole area where we could get an education. And now we're back to ground zero, where we're losing scholarships to men. It's just craziness, isn't it?
Yeah, and is this a widespread problem? The other side will point that out. This isn't happening much. It's not, but this is not the point. The point is, and my son's college is a good example. One of his female on the field hockey team, she's the first person in her family, first generation college student, made possible by a field hockey scholarship in her for her school. So that's amazing, really. I mean, that opened the doorway for her in that regard, and it's happening more and more, and it has for many females. But what we're finding now is that if you start to incentivize this, think about what the coaches might want to do. I mean, they want the best teams with the most competitive athletes, and in many cases, those will be boys. They will be biological men. They will not be females. And so that's what we're risking here, is to get to a point where we're normalizing this in such a way that that could become much more the norm and not a rule instead of the exception.
Well, and even if it is the exception, somebody's life is being changed, and I'm not sure that's right when you say, well, it isn't happening to everybody, but if it happens to one person, it still is a tragedy. It changes a life. And we need to take a break now. We are coming to you from the Conservative Commandos Radio Network studios and around the world on the internet with TalkStream Live, iHeartRadio, TuneIn, American Political Radio, Leading Edge Radio Network, and AM/FM 24/7. You can also watch our TV show on the AUN TV network in Northern California. We've been talking with Doreen Denny about this, is it fair play? How female athletes are losing in the age of gender identity. Rick and I will be right back after this message.
Have you been leasing a property for your business or renting storage space? Are you tired of paying rent year after year? Call the experts at General Steel to own a building at up to 30% off now.
I'd been renting a building and paying someone else's mortgage, but General Steel showed me how I could own a space tailored to the needs of my business and for less than renting.
Call General Steel now at the number on your screen for our current building specials and to price your metal building system today.
My building's the dream I've had since finishing my house 14 years ago. I've been using it for a garage, workshop, and storage area for my tools and equipment, and I can't believe how great it turned out.
The economy is improving and the price of steel is expected to rise. Stop waiting. It could cost you thousands. Call General Steel now to see how you can own for less than you thought. Stop waiting to start your business or expand your operation. Call General Steel now.
Call 877-484-7002.
Everybody wants cheap airfare, but where do you find it? You call low-cost airlines. Their prices are direct from the airlines, and they're so low you can't find these fares published anywhere. They specialize in cheap flights, discount hotel rooms, cheap car rental rates, and great package deals anywhere around the world. Wherever you want to go, they can help you get there cheaply and with a best price guarantee. If you want the lowest prices on your airline tickets or other travel services, call now. That's right, call. That's the only way to get these rates. Experts are standing by 24/7 to get you the cheapest airfare and hotel rates available. So don't wait. Call right now for the lowest travel prices anywhere and for great last-minute travel deals too.
Call 888-431-0562. That's 888-431-0562. 888-431-0562. 888-431-0562.
Friend, do you remember when it felt good to withdraw your cash from the bank to expand a business, go on vacation, or buy a new car? Well, today, withdrawing your own cash has become a very risky business, according to The Secret War, a shocking new research report. I just read it. And folks, I was amazed to learn why banks are now required to spy on us for the government and then report any suspicious or unusual behavior. I suggest you get The Secret War free. Just call the number on the screen, no charge, from the folks at Swiss America. And get this, did you know simply spending cash today may be enough to have you branded as a potential criminal? That's right. The new war on cash is really a war against all freedom-loving Americans. The Secret War is yours free, so call the number on the screen and you can tell them Pat Boone gave you the number.
Welcome, everybody. Welcome back to the Conservative Commandos radio show. I'm Sharron Angle here with my co-host, Rick Trader, and we'd like to give a shout-out to the listeners in Jacksonville, Tampa, and the Villages, Florida, Las Vegas and Reno, Nevada, Macon, Georgia, Lancaster and Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, Boulder and Colorado Springs, Colorado, Milwaukee, Wisconsin, Long Beach, California. We're everywhere. We are everywhere. And today we've been talking with our guest, Doreen Denny, who is the Senior Director of Government Relations for Concerned Women for America and the nation's largest public policy women's organization. She's written an article, Is It Fair Play? how female athletes are losing in the age of gender identity. And we have been talking about male posers as females winning awards and getting college scholarships and whatever else that should have gone to girls. And we, as women, are deeply offended by this. I think I can speak for Doreen on this account. I'm deeply offended by it. There is this act. It's called the Equality Act. And tell us about that Equality Act, will you, Doreen?
Yes, certainly. The Equality Act, it really should be called the Inequality Act, but we're going to take the name for that it's been given so that people aren't confused. But what it does is it's looking to change our fundamental understanding of civil rights in the area of sex. It would redefine what sex is, which we've always understood to be the binary reality of male and female, to include sexual orientation and gender identity as categories. They would have the same standing under federal law as a protected class. Now, in the area of when you talk about adding anything to our civil rights laws that isn't an immutable characteristic, meaning something inherent like usually our biological beings, gender identity as a characteristic class could be changing. It's a perception. It doesn't have any foundation as a fact, in fact. And the issue here for females certainly is, and for males as well, is that people will have the opportunity to have special advantages or access to places that we've always traditionally understood as being sex segregated places, in public accommodation, in jobs or other kinds of things that we ought to have the distinction in the area of athletics and sports. And this bill is very sweeping. And the thing that concerns me is that people aren't realizing and really taking seriously the broad implication that a federal law like this would be enshrined in our federal system would cause across the nation and the world.
Well, Rick and I have talked about this many times, and I know that he has some questions for you as well, Doreen.
Doreen, Denny, thank you for being our guest today. I could have been an all-star. If I was allowed to play with girls. I remember back in, I think it was about 7th grade, I was being punished by a teacher for God knows what reason. I was such a good kid, but I wasn't allowed to go out for recess, as they call it, with the boys. I think the teacher was trying to make an example of me. He made me play with the girls. And I loved it because I can remember the girls playing softball, and I could hit better than they could. I could run better than they could. I could throw better than they could. And I never had such a good time in my life. But Doreen, I think there is other ramifications for these types of things with girls playing with boys and the advantage that boys would have. But I also think there's something else, and I think you alluded it to in your column. I'll call it the wise guy effect. And what I mean by the wise guy effect, all the boys out there who would like to shower with the girls. You get what I'm saying?
Yes, I hear that. And I want to just make a point here, because it is important. All people have dignity, and everyone, and there are people that genuinely have situations where they feel certain ways, and I don't want to discredit or discount that. Mm-hmm. But you're exactly right. There are other times and situations in which someone might take advantage of a situation because of that. And let me just give you an example of this. And this is a real case in California right now, and it had to do with a women's homeless shelter. There was a transgender individual who, identifying as a woman, but a biological male, that went into that shelter because of how he identified himself as a she. And the shelter, because they received federal grants in housing, actually was required to allow that person to be in the women's shelter. The women were forced to take showers in the same setting with the male, and this transgender individual actually was not very was not nice. He was harassing them. He would make sexual comments toward them, do all sorts of things that they considered not appropriate. And yet the shelter felt that their hands were tied because this person had said, "I'm a female." Now think about it in the case of a domestic women's shelter. These are very vulnerable women. You might have somebody that finds the fact that they can have access into this situation. We had a situation in the UK with a prison where a predator, a sexual predator, was put in the women's prison and raped 2 prisoners.
Oh my gosh!
And
so
these are
this law is not going to affect your society as far as athletics go, but right across the board.
Across the board. And wow. I think that's the thing that people have to understand. The law itself says any public accommodation which right now I would interpret, there isn't anything that says it wouldn't be bathrooms. Some say, would it be bathrooms? But shelters are particularly identified as a public accommodation in this law, or the bill. It's not a law yet, thankfully. But also in other places, any schools that receive federal funding, they would need to accommodate the notion that someone identifying with their gender, which would be the opposite sex from their biology, would have to be accommodated that way and would have the access. So we're giving special equal, what they want to say, equal rights to certain people. But who's it at the expense of? I mean, 51% of the female population, or the population in the U.S. are women, are females. And we've already pointed out the ways in which that could be used to our disadvantage, in particular, considering our biology.
Our guest this segment is Doreen Denny. She's a senior director of government relations for Concerned Women for America. Doreen, we have seen this play out in the past. We have seen, for instance, the Russian athletes were actually using men in women's sports. And for years and years and years, Russia dominated, for instance, in the Olympics. Come to find out, they were using men in women's sports. They were also using performance-enhancing drugs. You brought up this situation in Connecticut about this girl that lost her place on a track team or in a championship because she lost out to 2 boys. We've also seen situations where, I believe it was in Texas, a boy won a girls' championship in wrestling. And one of the reasons for that is a lot of the parents didn't want their children, who were girls, to be wrestling a boy.
Yeah. Now, in that particular case, and this was a little bit of a flip, but this was a female biologically, but she'd already been on 2 years of testosterone. So she had all the physical, she was developing all the physical characteristics and the strength with having basically what we called in the days of, doping, right? When you take the steroids and so forth. So in this case, when you have a female that's transitioning to become a male with the hormone treatments and the testosterone, it automatically gives them greater advantages as well. So this particular athlete, Mac Beggs is the name, ended up never losing a match, and physically again was transitioning, had every intention to continue on. But how is that fair to allow for, in this case, a woman to have a young girl to be on steroids, essentially testosterone, for 2 years, and then wrestling against girls?
You see, the problem with that is, if that student took performance-enhancing drugs,
right,
he or she would be suspended. Absolutely. Right. Doreen Denny, we want to thank you so much for joining us. Before you go, please take a minute to tell our audience a little bit about Concerned Women for America.
Well, thank you for that opportunity. Concerned Women for America is celebrating our 40th anniversary this year. We got started around the age of, the women's rights movement, when certain women were saying that they were speaking for all the women of America, but they were doing that with the sexual revolution and abortion and other places. And our founder, Beverly LaHaye, said, you don't speak for all the women of America. In fact, there are many women who don't believe those things. And we had our start 40 years ago with that. And it does feel like, Sharron, like we're coming right around back to some of those same debates again. And so we're the nation's largest public policy women's organization. We're based in Washington, D.C., but we have grassroots networks across the country. We have women that are working as leaders in states in many states and in state legislatures. Many of them have been working on these issues in their states already in this legislative session. We'd love for you to come and visit our site in any regard. Become members, concernedwomen.org. And it's just a pleasure to be with you today, and we hope you invite us back.
Do you let men in?
Pardon me?
Do you let men in?
Absolutely. We love men.
Doreen, Denny, we want to thank you for joining us. Take care and God bless.
Thank you so much.
And you are listening and watching the Conservative Commandos radio show with Sharron Angle and yours truly, Rick Trader, coming to you from the studios of the Conservative Commandos radio network. Our next guest will be Marlo Lewis. He's a senior fellow at the Competitive Enterprise Institute, and he's written a very interesting article, Carbon Tax, Not a Conservative Policy. We know that. Why doesn't everybody? But don't go away. We'll be right back with our next guest.
AM/FM 24/7 Roku channel broadcasts all of our shows on demand. To ensure reliability, we store and stream our content on the same servers as Netflix and Amazon. Our Roku channel is free to use, and anyone owning one of the more than 10 million Roku devices can watch our channel at no cost whatsoever. If you have a television show or are thinking about producing a show, you can be a part of AM/FM 24/7's Roku channel. Watch our great shows on your Roku device. It's free and more reliable than cable TV. Are you stuck with a timeshare? Did you attend the presentation and were seduced and enticed into buying that great vacation and investment? Now you're in the terrible position of trying to figure out a way to get out of that mess. You're not alone. For over 15 years, BuyYourTimeshare.com has been helping people like yourself get out of timeshare ownership. The fact is there is no resale market. Unscrupulous telemarketers call you and say they have buyers waiting, and the next thing that happens is you give them hundreds of dollars for an ad, and you'll never hear from them again. Another fact is that an identical timeshare to yours is being offered on eBay for $1, and no one is buying it. If you want out of your timeshare, I urge you to go to buyyourtimeshare.com or call them at 877-94-HELP-ME. That number again is 877-94-HELP-ME. Buyyourtimeshare.com. That's buyyourtimeshare.com. 877-94-HELP-ME.
Dish TV is better than cable TV. Here's why. Dish has the nation's lowest TV price, along with an award-winning DVR that can skip commercials, record 8 shows at once, and get access to thousands of movies at your fingertips. Cable simply can't even compare. So the smart choice is to cut the cable and get Dish. Plus, you get all these great TV features, free HD DVR upgrade, free installation, and free movie channels. Say goodbye to cable and get more with Dish TV. 877-290-7764, 877-290-7764. As an added bonus, you can switch to Dish now and receive a $50 Visa gift card. So call now and get Dish TV. Call 877-290-7764, 877-290-7764. That's 877-290-7764. Limited time offer, 24-month commitment and credit qualification required. Cancellation fee, monthly equipment fees, and other restrictions apply. Promotion can change at any time.
Welcome, everybody. Welcome back to the Conservative Commandos radio show. I'm Sharron Angle with our co-host, Rick Trader, and we're coming to you from the Conservative Commandos radio network studios with a shout out to our listeners in Jacksonville, Tampa and the Villages, Florida, Las Vegas and Reno, Nevada, Macon, Georgia, Lancaster and Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, Boulder in Colorado Springs, Colorado, Milwaukee, Wisconsin, Long Beach, California. We're everywhere. We are everywhere. And we have our next guest with us, Rick, a friend of ours, Marlo Lewis, who is a senior fellow at the Competitive Enterprise Institute. Marlo has been published in the Washington Times, Investors Business Daily, Tech Central Station, National Review, among others. He has appeared on various television and radio programs, and his ideas have been featured in radio commentary by Rush Limbaugh and G. Gordon Liddy. Prior to joining Conservative Enterprise Institute, he served as Director of External Relations at the Reason Foundation. During the 106th Congress, Marlo served as the staff director of the House Government Reform Subcommittee on National Economic Growth, Natural Resources, and Regulatory Affairs. Marlo, welcome back to the Conservative Commandos radio show.
Well, thank you very much for having me again.
Well, it's always our pleasure, Marlo. You write such interesting articles. It always piques me. You've written one now called "Carbon Tax, Not a Conservative Policy." Well, we know that. What's going on? It seems like there's some folks that think they're conservatives, but they're backing this. Is that what I'm getting?
That's exactly what you're getting. Well, look, there's a natural human temptation to want to have your cake and eat it, and this, I think, is especially true of politicians who want to be all things to all people. And so there are politicians and political consultants who like the conservative label because it gives them entree into certain circles. But they also want to be on good terms with people who are progressive and who think that higher taxes is a good thing and more regulation is a good thing, and who think that climate change is the greatest peril facing mankind in human history. And so they try to square this circle. And so some of them, actually, quite a few, and quite prominent as well, people like George Shultz, former Secretary of State to Ronald Reagan, Howard Baker, guy who was chief of staff, to George Shultz and others, and to President Reagan. They have decided that the conservative approach, because allegedly it's more efficient than regulation, is a carbon tax. So a lot of these folks are pushing carbon taxes as a smart Republican or conservative climate policy. And this is I just think this is politically toxic to everything that conservatives stand for. And I can explain that to you if you would like.
I think I would like. As a legislator, I always voted no on every tax and fee increase because, as we know, fees are just taxes on individuals rather than on the whole. But that's what the conservative mantra has always been for me, was lower taxes, less regulation, and you can't lower taxes if you're putting more on. So I would like you to explain how they get there with this carbon tax is a conservative idea.
Yeah, well, you've really hit the nail on the head. I mean, when I first heard people saying this, I said, "What, are you nuts?" I mean, the way I've always tried to simplify it for the sophisticates in Washington, D.C., who sometimes get lost in their own conceptual cobwebs, is, look, what we have today in this country is, to no small degree, a struggle between two movements. One movement, the conservative movement, is pro-energy and anti-tax, and the progressive movement is pro-tax and anti-energy. So there is a very clear product differentiation. This is absolutely essential for conservatives to maintain if they want to be a viable movement. But there are these people who think, okay, now we ought to blur the differences so that conservatives become the party to tax energy. So, and you can't pursue these two alternative trajectories simultaneously. One says, look, what we want is market-driven American energy dominance, and that is in fact what we're achieving under the presidency of Donald Trump. America has become the Saudi Arabia, not just of coal, but of oil. We're outproducing the Saudis, we're outproducing the Russians, and we're doing it because Trump is relieving the regulatory and tax impediments to investment generally, but also in the energy sector. And so for conservatives, or for so-called conservatives, to now come and say, well, really what we need to do is start increasing the tax burden on energy, that would immediately that would nip this emerging era of American energy dominance in the bud, and that would mean that we'd have to give up all of the jobs that it's creating, all of the consumer energy savings that it's providing, all of the GDP growth, the overall growth in the economy that it's contributing, the geopolitical influence we're getting from it because we are emerging as the world leader in energy, not Saudi Arabia, not Russia, but the United States. So all those things would just be destroyed, smashed, if this country enacted a carbon tax. And it will never happen unless silly Republicans give the progressives bipartisan cover to do it. And you know, I mean, with Republicans or conservatives like that, you know, who needs Democrats or progressives?
That's right. That's right. It's difficult when the guys on your team are playing for the other side.
Absolutely. Well put.
Well, I wanted you to just name a few names. You know, we kind of have our usual suspects, but we like to know, you know, because everyone thinks, well, it's not my representative. It wouldn't be my guy that's doing that, because they really don't come out into the district and say, well, you know, I just voted for more taxes, that's why your gas prices went up. They won't tell you that. So talk to us a little bit about who these fake conservatives are. I can't say it any better.
Right. Well, you know, a lot of them are people in think tanks, or they're academicians, or they're elder statesmen who no longer have to run for office. So as I said, you have the crowd that very modestly call themselves the Climate Leadership Council, which includes George Shultz and Howard Baker, and you did have two former congressmen who were for this. A guy named Carlos Curbelo had a carbon tax bill, a Republican, who was the co-chair of something called the Climate Solutions Caucus in the House, and so he tried to pioneer this third way, a carbon tax, and he ran on this in 2018 and lost his seat. He's from Florida, whereas in 2016, when he wasn't campaigning for a carbon tax, he didn't have a carbon tax bill. He won, you know, and so you know, he scored better in his district than Hillary Clinton did in 2016. But in 2018, after he became Mr. Republican carbon tax, he got beat by a challenger. And it was really funny because the challenger, her argument was, you're a phony climate warrior. Well, why is he a phony climate warrior? Because he voted for the tax cut, and you know, the big tax cut, the Republican, the Trumpian, you know, jobs tax cut and Jobs Creation Act. And so why does that make him a phony climate warrior? Well, because part of that was opening up the Alaska National Wildlife Refuge to oil exploration. So the only true climate warrior, according to her, is keep it in the ground. You know, don't let any oil be developed. Don't let any natural gas be developed. So unless he was, so the thing was, I mean, and I haven't done a detailed study or anything, but I assume that there were at least some conservatives in his district who got turned off by his advocacy of a carbon tax, but it didn't win him any friends really among Democrats, because that's not extreme enough, you know. And so anyway, so there's this. You see this so often in politics that people want to put their foot on the brakes, slam the brakes, and also hit pedal to the metal at the same time, because they want to be all things to all people. And sometimes you just got to face the fact that there are stark alternatives, and you're either for American energy dominance or you're for deep decarbonization. And deep decarbonization leads straight to poverty, you know, and national economic contraction, whereas energy dominance grows the economy. And so I wrote this column that, you know, it's called Carbon Tax is Not a Conservative Policy. And I want people to understand I'm not a denier. I think climate change is real. I think it poses some risks. However, I've believed now for more than 20 years researching this, that we have much more to fear from climate policy than we have from climate change itself. Climate change really isn't a crisis, but over government overreach. Too much government is. Too much government breaks the bank. Look at Venezuela, Look at the history of the 20th century. And if we go down the road that people like Representative Ocasio-Cortez and Bernie Sanders and Sheldon Whitehouse and all these progressives, if we actually enacted their agenda, we'd all end up in the poorhouse, except for the people who were controlling the mechanisms of redistributing wealth from Washington.
Well, from Marlo Lewis's mouth to Congress's ears. That's what I say. I hope that just listening to you, Marlo, and reading your columns, they'll get a clue that this is not the way to win friends and influence people, especially if you're running for re-election. We have to take a short break right now. We're coming to you from the Conservative Commandos Radio Network studios and around the world on the internet with TalkStream Live, iHeartRadio, TuneIn, American Political Radio, Leading Edge Radio Network, and AM/FM 24/7. And now you can watch our TV show on the AUN TV network in Northern California. We've been speaking with Marlo Lewis, who is a senior fellow at the Competitive Enterprise Institute, about carbon tax, not a conservative policy. We'll be right back with Rick Trader, and I'm Sharron Angle.
I saw voter fraud with my own eyes. Now, people say, why didn't you report it to the authorities? Well, they were the ones doing it.
The integrity of one man, one vote doesn't apply at the Texas state legislature. There is no way to know if your representatives are voting for themselves.
Department, a Republican, reaches back to vote for Democrat Oliveira. Democrat Matt Reynolds votes for Republican England.
2 out of 3 voters nationwide believe that voter fraud is a serious problem in the U.S. today.
The process is rigged.
Both sides of the aisle are guilty.
Florida now has to tell the Department of Justice whether the state will comply with DOJ's demand to stop purging thousands of people from its voter rolls.
We have the sloppiest election system of any industrialized democracy.
Philadelphia flagged 50,000 duplicate registrations, so just think how many more slipped through.
It's almost impossible to detect.
How do you get caught? You only get caught if you confess.
Election corruption is deeply embedded in America. Quote, election fraud is a crime that usually pays, unquote, writes Tracy Campbell in his book, Deliver the Vote, A History of Election Fraud, an American political tradition from 1742 to 2004. In 1742, the first Prime Minister of Britain in the American colonies, Robert Walpole, was forced to resign.
We have a right not to have our vote canceled out by someone who shouldn't be voting, someone who's an illegal alien, someone who's a felon not eligible to vote, someone who doesn't exist. If they vote, they cancel your vote out as much as if you're prevented from voting.
If this is going to be fixed, it's going to have to be a citizen effort. It comes down to, it's the same old question, if not now, when? If not us, then who?
This is huge. This is about the democracy and the principles of the United States of America. People say, but why you? Why you? Why? Well, why not? And if it starts with a fireman, if it starts with a sanitation worker, if it starts with a teacher or a nurse or a caretaker of the elderly, then so be it. It's got to start somewhere. But it's time we come together and fix this problem once and for all.
There is no serious person out there who would suggest somehow that you could even rig America's elections.
To say that it doesn't exist is an outright lie.
Serious allegations of voter fraud, the claims raising questions about the
Commerce Secretary Ron Brown and 32 others were on a military plane that crashed today in a violent storm. There are no known survivors at this time.
The U.S. Army was funded by the evil entity.
I saw voter fraud with my own eyes.
To say that it doesn't exist is an outright lie.
The process is rigged.
it's incredibly important now that we draw a line and say, not on our watch.
Thank you for staying with us. This is the Conservative Commandos radio show with Sharron Engel and yours truly, Rick Trader. For rebroadcasts of our shows, please check out our website, ccrshow.com. That's ccrshow.com. You'll find rebroadcasts of our radio show there, our TV show there, a lot of great articles and a lot of great information. Our guest this segment is Marlo Lewis. He's a senior fellow at the Competitive Enterprise Institute. Marlo has written an article, Carbon Tax, Not a Conservative Policy. Marlo, thank you for holding through that break. We really do appreciate your time.
Oh, thank you very much.
Well, Marlo, I know I'm a true conservative, and I'll tell you why. In your article, you write about this guy, Alex Flint. He's with Alliance for Market Solutions. He says anyone who denies the risk of climate change is irresponsible, and being irresponsible disqualifies anyone from being a true conservative. Now, Marlo, as you know from having been with us before, I do believe in climate change, and I believe in climate change because I love history, and history has told us over the past 100,000 years, there have actually been four ice ages about every 25,000 years. We go through an ice age. The last one was about 12,000 years ago, and at that time there was an ice sheet that covered North America all the way down to Princeton, New Jersey. In some place, that ice sheet was 2 miles thick. Marlo, that ice went somewhere, so there had to be some kind of climate change. So therefore, I'm not being irresponsible. I do believe in climate change. Am I right on this?
You're absolutely right. And yeah, so you know what I wrote about that is that. All right, I don't think climate change is a hoax. I do think it poses some risks, but as I was saying earlier, I believe we have more to fear from climate policy than from climate change itself for various reasons. One is that the rate of warming is so modest and steady. It's not rapid and accelerating as a lot of very loosey-goosey journalism would suggest. The official assessments, the ones provided by the government, I think, or by governments, exaggerate climate change risks. And then you have all these climate campaigners who further hype the risks. And most importantly, they deny that there are any climate policy risks, which is just ridiculous, because it's like saying, well, let's make energy really costly and nothing bad will happen. And we know that there's a kind of a nice, an interesting correlation over the last couple of decades between rising energy costs and recessions. You know, it's almost always there's a recession has at least as one of its contributing factors skyrocketing oil prices. Well, what would climate policy do to oil prices? Make all energy prices, make them rise, and then just this sort of crisis mentality, which this panic. Which is always, as who was it who said, never let a crisis go to waste. Well, if you can manufacture a climate crisis that never ends, then you've always got an excuse to extend the reach of government and the cost of government. One of the things that I think is really just fascinating is that our own government, the U.S. government under Trump, put out this massive report, well over 1,500 pages, I think, when you get through with all of it, called the Fourth National Climate Assessment. And this is often pointed to as evidence that you see Trump is ignoring his own agencies, and even our government says that this is a terrible crisis and we must deal with it. And so I've looked into this, and what instead of trying to to go through all of the trees in this vast forest, because it's like literally over 1,000 footnotes if you were to try to follow up with everything that's in it. I went and looked at the core methodological assumptions. What are the big premises on which it's based? Well, and especially for the headline that emerged out of it. The headline that emerged out of it that was highlighted by the New York Times is that climate change, if it isn't checked, could reduce U.S. GDP by as much as 10% in the last decade of this century. So when we get to the 2090s, GDP could be 10% smaller. We could have a 10% hit on GDP. How did they get that? Well, okay, what they do is they take a group of climate models, and it turns out that these models project twice as much warming as has actually occurred over the last 40 years. So they take models that are overheated, models that are overestimating the amount of warming that has actually occurred, and then they run those with an emissions scenario. In other words, how much carbon dioxide and other greenhouse gases are projected to enter the atmosphere over the next decades, and how high will the concentrations get. So they use an emission scenario that's inflated, because this emission scenario assumes that coal becomes the world's dominant energy source over the next 80 years, that by the year 2100, almost half of the world's energy will be coming from coal. Now, that is an energy mix that we haven't seen since the 1940s. There is not a single energy expert in the world who thinks that's in any way plausible. So you take those two things, and then guess what? They run these models. There are 32 of them. They run them a whole bunch of times, and in 1% of the model outputs, you get 8 degrees of global warming, which no one is predicting. That's 8 degrees Celsius or 14 degrees Fahrenheit. And in that 1% of the model runs, once you've already stacked the deck by using an inflated emission scenario and overheated models, in 1% do you get 8 degrees, and they claim that that translates into a 10% reduction in GDP by the 2090s. Now, what they don't mention ever in the report, in this national assessment, this official document, is that there's only a 1% probability when you use this biased combination of model and scenario. They don't tell you that it's only a 1% chance that this might happen. What they also don't tell you is that it's not a 10% reduction in GDP from what we have today, but what we would otherwise have in the 2090s. And guess what? If under the Trumpian pro-energy economy, we keep growing at 3% a year, even if there were a 10% hit on the economy in the 2090s, our economy would still be 10 times bigger than it is today. So there is absolutely no crisis here. It's all smoke and mirrors.
Well, I totally agree with you, Marlo, and I wanted to ask you, this is the 4th National Climate Assessment. What happened to the other 3? What was it? They just said, never mind, we got to have a number 4 direct. Is this like Windows 7, 8, and, 8.1?
Well, yeah, they're required by statute, and they don't meet their deadlines usually, but they're required by statute, I believe, to produce a new assessment every 4 years.
Oh my God.
And I mean, it was just genius. If you want to keep scaring people, then you require the government to produce these scary reports. And of course, the way the media works is it only leads if it bleeds. So each time it has to say it's worse than we thought. It's even worse than it was last time. But the fact of the matter is as I pointed out in this article, since the 1920s, which is a period of time in which 90% of all the greenhouse gas emissions ever released since the dawn of the Industrial Revolution have entered the atmosphere. So 90% of all industrial greenhouse gas emissions in history have entered the atmosphere since the 1920s, and the world has warmed up by about 0.8 degrees Celsius since the 1920s. So there's been global warming, and guess what? The probability that any human being on the planet will be killed by extreme weather has declined by 99%. In other words, our climate has become vastly more livable than it ever was in the days before global warming. I mean that your risk of dying today from an extreme weather event are 99% lower than they would be if you were living in the 1920s before global warming. All right, and then get this: just since 1990, the relative impact of extreme weather on the global economy has shrunk. It was never very big, but in 1990 it was something like 0.31% of global GDP was damages related to extreme weather, and today it's 0.24. So anyway, what we find is that our economy is becoming more livable, that our climate is becoming more livable, and our economy is becoming decreasingly sensitive to climatic factors. So the trends are highly sustainable. There is no crisis in that data. There is comfort and reassurance in it, rather.
Marlo Lewis, Senior Fellow at the Competitive Enterprise Institute. We always enjoy speaking with you, Marlo. Please tell our audience how they could follow your work, read this article, and find out more about the Competitive Enterprise Institute.
Oh, thank you so much. Well, you can just go to CEI.org, CEI.org, and this article of mine appears on our blog, which is called it's the Open Market blog, and it's right on the top right hand, or it's sort of it's on the right hand side of our web page. If you go to CEI.org, you'll see it, and then you can just click on my name under the title of the article, and you can find other stuff that I've been writing.
All right, Marlo Lewis, Competitive Enterprise Institute. Thank you so much for joining us. Take care and God bless.
Thank you, Rick and Sharron.
And this is the Conservative Commandos radio show with Sharron Angle and yours truly, Rick Trader. Don't go away. Sharron and I will be back with more right after this break.
Have you been leasing a property for your business or renting storage space? Are you tired of paying rent year after year? Call the experts at General Steel to own a building at up to 30% off now.
I'd been renting a building and paying someone else's mortgage, but General Steel showed me how I could own a space tailored to the needs of my business and for less than renting.
Call General Steel now at the number on your screen for our current building specials and to price your metal building system today.
My building's the dream I've had since finishing my house 14 years ago. I've been using it for a garage, workshop, and storage area for my tools and equipment, and I can't believe how great it turned out.
The economy is improving, and the price of steel is expected to rise. Stop waiting. It could cost you thousands. Call General Steel now to see how you can own for less than you thought. Stop waiting to start your business or expand your operation. Call General Steel now.
Call 877-484-7002.
Everybody wants cheap airfare, but where do you find it? You call low-cost airlines. Their prices are direct from the airlines, and they're so low you can't find these fares published anywhere. They specialize in cheap flights, discount hotel rooms, cheap car rental rates, and great package deals anywhere around the world. Wherever you want to go, they can help you get there cheaply and with a best price guarantee. If you want the lowest prices on your airline tickets or other travel services, call now. That's right, call. That's the only way to get these rates. Experts are standing by 24/7 to get you the cheapest airfare and hotel rates available. So don't wait. Call right now for the lowest travel prices anywhere and for great last-minute travel deals too.
Call 888-431-0562. That's 888-431-0562. 888-431-0562. 888-431-0562.
Friend, do you remember when it felt good to withdraw your cash from the bank to expand a business, go on vacation, or buy a new car? Well, today, withdrawing your own cash has become a very risky business, according to The Secret War, a shocking new research report. I just read it. And folks, I was amazed to learn why banks are now required to spy on us for the government and then report any suspicious or unusual behavior. I suggest you get The Secret War free. Just call the number on the screen, no charge, from the folks at Swiss America. And get this, did you know simply spending cash today may be enough to have you branded as a potential criminal? That's right. The new war on cash is really a war against all freedom-loving Americans. The Secret War is yours free, so call the number on the screen and you can tell them Pat Boone gave you the number.
AM/FM 24/7 Roku channel broadcasts all of our shows on demand. To ensure reliability, we store and stream our content on the same servers as Netflix and Amazon. Our Roku channel is free to use, and anyone owning one of the more than 10 million Roku devices can watch our channel at no cost whatsoever. If you have a television show or are thinking about producing a show, you can be a part of AM/FM 24/7's Roku channel. Watch our great shows on your Roku device. It's free and more reliable than cable TV. Are you stuck with a timeshare? Did you attend the presentation and were seduced and enticed into buying that great vacation and investment? Now you're in the terrible position of trying to figure out a way to get out of that mess. You're not alone. For over 15 years, BuyYourTimeshare.com has been helping people like yourself get out of timeshare ownership. The fact is, there is no resale market. Unscrupulous telemarketers call you and say they have buyers waiting, and the next thing that happens is you give them hundreds of dollars for an ad, and you'll never hear from them again. Another fact is that an identical timeshare to yours is being offered on eBay for $1, and no one is buying it. If you want out of your timeshare, I urge you to go to BuyYourTimeshare.com or call them at 877-94-HELP-ME. That number again is 877-94-HELP-ME. BuyYourTimeshare.com. That's BuyYourTimeshare.com. 877-94-HELP-ME.
Dish TV is better than cable TV. Here's why. Dish has the nation's lowest TV price, along with an award-winning DVR that can skip commercials, record 8 shows at once, and get access to thousands of movies at your fingertips. Cable simply can't even compare. So the smart choice is to cut the cable and get Dish. Plus, you get all these great TV features, free HD DVR upgrade, free installation, and free movie channels. Say goodbye to cable and get more with Dish TV. 877-290-7764, 877-290-7764. As an added bonus, you can switch to Dish now and receive a $50 Visa gift card. So call now and get Dish TV. Call 877-290-7764, 877-290-7764. That's 877-290-7764. Limited time offer, 24-month commitment and credit qualification required. Cancellation fee, monthly equipment fees, and other restrictions apply. Promotion can change at any time.
Well, Sharron, that just about wraps it up for today's show. As usual, I want to thank you for sitting in today as my co-host, and please tell our audience how they could find out what you're doing when you're not here at Conservative Commandos.
Well, they can always find me on my website, SharronAngle.com, SharronAngle.com. And of course, I'd like to thank our guests. I'd like to thank Dr. Jerome Corsi, who's an investigative journalist, and he gave us a little insight into Julian Assange, who has more information that could destroy the Russian hoax. We also want to thank our guest, Doreen Denny, who is with the Concerned Women for America. She's their government relations director, and she talked about, is it fair play, how female athletes are losing in the age of gender identity. And then our final guest, Marlo Lewis with the Competitive Enterprise Institute, talking about carbon tax is not a conservative policy.
I don't think so. I don't think so. You know, Sharron, too many times people use the word conservative. They like to put the word conservative on the front of things. A lot of liberal things, like, as conservative views on tax reform, and it's really not conservative. You got to be careful. You got to be careful and read between the lines. There's a group out there, Right on Crime, that says this is a conservative approach to criminal justice reform. It's not. but they think just put the word conservative or right on it, and they'll be able to sell their issues. I don't know. But for right now, we are out of time. We got to run. We got to go. Take care. God bless. We'll see you tomorrow on TV and on radio.